Thank you very much for staying. Thanks once again. And the program is The Marketplace. You're welcome back. Now, President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo is expected to have a lot on his table as he begins work from the Flagstaff House today. This was after he was sworn in as the 5th president of the Fourth Republic last Saturday. But what are some of the critical economic issues that he will be dealing with from today? George Wiafe tells us more.
One of the major issues that will be on Nana's table when he gets into the Flagstaff House this morning is how to deal with the current power crisis, which some experts say is actually not over, especially when it has been argued that the challenge facing the sector is more of a funding problem rather than a technical issue. Therefore, the concern here is how will the Nana government raise the necessary funds to address this, looking at the current revenue squeeze facing the economy. There are also numerous challenges on the labor front, like the recent review in the minimum wage and base pay, as well as some of the areas government might have to clear in that sector. Again, how the incoming administration makes sure they'll be able to raise the necessary funds to deal with all these issues. Some industries in the last quarter of 2016 told Joy Business that they are planning to carry out another round of layoffs in the first quarter of 2017 because of the challenging business environment. Already, GTP and Pioneer Food Cannery have asked about 400 workers to go home. Again, how would Anadu convince these firms to hold on with these planned layoffs? Because this government is planning to institute measures to deal with the difficult business environment. It has also been rumored that the country might not be able to meet its over 30 billion cedis revenue target for 2016. This might have some serious implications for the new administration when it comes to meeting expenditure obligations for the first quarter of this year. This is because the new administration might have to depend on the last quarter revenue to fund their operations for the first quarter of 2017. But what measures is government then planning to institute to deal with this expected revenue shortfalls following the NPP's promise to remove some taxes? Many economists will also be looking forward to see how the new administration would deal with the city's stability, as promised in his manifesto. Already the city is still yet to recover from its shocks last year. One can also not forget about the IMF program that as the new administration is working to engage the fund to review some aspects. But the question is, how should it go about this review not to send wrong signals to investors and donors out there?
Meanwhile, economist Professor Felix Asante tells Joy Business, despite predictions by the IMF and the World Bank, there are tougher times ahead.
I mean, I'm just even hoping that general salaries will even be paid on time, because you see, if you follow the issues of the Article 71 office holders payments and other things, and if all these payments are going to be made, then a huge amount of resources are going to go out of government coffers, and that is going to be a big challenge for the incoming government.
And how does he get around that, some would say? Because the argument was that, listen, these monies have been budgeted for on an annual basis. Government should be doing almost like 40 million Ghana cedis. The whole budget for compensation for workers is not more than 10 billion Ghana cedis. This is something that the economy can absorb. This is something that the budget can absorb. So it's more of much ado about nothing. That is what is out there.
I mean, that is what the budget can absorb. But were we able to achieve those revenue targets that we are saying that the budget will be able to absorb? Those are the questions that we should be asking. I mean, we need to mobilize resources, okay? And one would think the easiest is to increase tax, but I'm hoping that we don't come with new tax rules or regulations. We should be innovative and find ways of raising revenue. And if that will work, I think the private sector and the business should be used as the engine to propel this. I mean, looking at the business environment, the number of days to set up a business and that. I mean, when you look at the 2017 doing business ranking, I mean, Ghana is not, we were overtaken by Mauritius, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa. Yes. And if we want the economy to work, we need to improve upon the business environment.
And in another development, private businesses have welcomed the new government's decision to empower private sectors to drive the country's economic growth and create jobs. President Akufo-Addo made a promise during the inauguration over the weekend.
In his inaugural speech, President Akufo-Addo impressed on private businesses the need to revive the investment drive in the economy, urging them to drive the country's economic growth and create jobs.
We will stimulate the creative juices of innovators. We'll bring to life the adventurer in you. It is time to imagine and to dream again. Time to try that business idea again. We will reduce taxes to recover the momentum of our economy. The doors of Ghana are open again. The shutters are up again. There could not be a better opportunity to make in Ghana and to make it in Ghana.
The umbrella body for private businesses, the Private Enterprise Federation, says they would reposition to harness the expected opportunities. The chief executive, Nana Osei-Bonsu, has been speaking to Joy Business.
We have to grow the competencies and the capacities to be able to take advantage of the opportunities it's going to create for us. We don't want to let him down and let ourselves down by not being able to perform. So private sector now has to sit down and sit up and look within itself. What can we do? You see, job creation is not an art where anybody says an investment to go and create jobs. Businesses established to make money. And when they get more money and they're expanding and growing, they create jobs and wealth. So it's very important that all the rules and regulations and everything else, the enablers, what they call, are in line to allow private sector to become profitable. Then we'll be able to grow and able to bring other people and create the jobs and wealth.
The president also emphasized his government's commitment to revamp the public sector by ensuring integrity and accountability in public service. But what strategy could yield the desired results? Nana Osei-Bonsu again.
Knowing what we know about the president, I think he's going to drive his people to be more efficient than what we've known over the years. But one of the areas that I think we can explore is, do they come with terms of reference? What's the deliverables expected of them? So if it's a blanket go as a minister and do whatever you want in the ministry, then how do you measure performance? So those are areas that maybe it will take time to develop the baseline for the terms of reference for ministers and public service servants or public service deliverers to be able to hold them accountable. He says they got to be held accountable. You're going to hold somebody accountable, then it got to be lines that are drawn, understood by both parties that I'm responsible for A, B, C, D. It can be done, I can evolve as we operate and go forward. So that can be done in due course.
So could the new government really turn around the fortunes of the economy, especially to the benefit of private businesses as expected? Certainly, only time will tell.
All right, so we will be hitting the Central Business District of Accra to actually talk to some small-scale businesses to find out from them when they expect the president's promise of reduction in taxes take off and what impact this would certainly bring to businesses. But for now, let's cross over to the downstream petroleum sector, where the co-chair of the Ghana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Dr. Steve Mantiao, has called on the new government to merge the management of the Tema Oil Refinery and the bulk oil storage and transportation company, BOST, for efficiency in the petroleum downstream sector. According to him, the measure will, among others, cut down costs and facilitate operations in the refining and distribution of petroleum products in the country. TOR has started refining 1 million barrels of crude from the Trinidad Enyira and Ntome fields. Currently, TOR and BOST are separate entities but are jointly managed. All right, so this has raised some concerns of lack of transparency and effective oversight responsibility. Now, joining us on phone now to actually throw more light on this is Dr. Steve Mantiao. Doctor, good afternoon. Welcome to the market, please.
Good afternoon, and Happy New Year to your cherished listeners.
Many happy returns. Now, what would the proposed measure that you are advocating bring to the downstream sector? How significant is it?
Right. let me first make the point that in today's world, you need to think efficiency, and you need to think big. And let me also say that even though there is this popular saying that government has no business being in business, there are some strategic sectors of the national economy that you cannot leave to the private sector. Again, let me challenge the notion that the public sector is inefficient, and to say that in our world today, we've had companies like Eskom, which is the power company in South Africa, that has dominance in the whole of Southern Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and the rest. And also we've had Telenor of this world, which once upon a time came to Ghana to manage our telecom sector. And these are all public sector entities. But they've grown so big that now they become multinationals. And that is the way I challenge the current administration to think in terms of certain strategic corporate entities that we have in this country. And Temoyo Refinery is one of them. If you look at the primary function of Temoyo Refinery, it imports crude, refines, and trades the crude through the OMCC on the Ghanaian market. It has huge storage facility for crude, as well as huge storage facility for refined products. Currently, I'm informed its storage facilities over the time have been used by the BDCs because the company itself was moribund, and so left most of its storage facilities idle. Thankfully, Mr. Kwame Iwuadakom has managed to turn things around, and they are back in business. Now, you look at the functions of BOST. It maintains a national strategic stock, as well as ensure even distribution of products across the country. The two functions, in my view, are interrelated. And so there's nothing to really to be gained by separating them, but a lot more to be gained by keeping them together. One, when you bring them together, you are going to eventually end up reducing the operational cost of the two entities, because you're going to need one managing director, one management for the two entities. Two, you are going to enhance its balance sheet in a way that empowers that company to be able to raise public finance to finance its operations, so that private finance to finance its operations, so they don't have to depend on the national budget for its activity, the way it has been over the years, and which invariably, for me, accounts for the inefficiency that we have there, because government money is more like free money. But if you have to go on the open market and raise money for your operations, then you become accountable.
Now, Doctor, even with TOR alone, we had so much inefficiencies, which resulted in heavy, debts. Now, do you think, or don't you think that bringing BOST together with TOR would rather exacerbate the situation of properly managing these outfits?
No, my view is that we need to introduce some business sense into the operations of our public commercial entities. So you don't treat them like government departments and agencies who are given budgetary allocation and spend anyhow. And that has been the practice. It's just like Maslow. People thinking that this is an address from the party I support, and so the party comes to power, I take money, I don't have to pay. The same people will take money from Barclays and they will pay. So I'm saying that this notion of being given free government money must end. And let's make the companies responsible for their own financing. And so you empower them, and that is why I think this whole practice of politically appointing the heads of these institutions must stop. I think the appointments to heads of public commercial entities must be on the basis of professional competence, experience, and proven integrity, and must come with a clearly articulated contract with target deliveries. And that is the way you get people to be responsible for the action.
All right. Now, Thor, let's, I beg your pardon, Doc, let's look at it from this point. Internationally, some companies like Saudi Aramco has integrated, both the upstream and downstream sectors under one umbrella. Yeah. Are you calling for this same practice, to be done, where we integrate the downstream?
You mentioned Aramco, precisely what I'm calling for. But you mentioned Aramco, and I will add, Petronas of Malaysia.
Sure.
You go to Malaysia, this is one, by no doubt, a very efficient company, a national oil company, which dominates, okay, the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream sector, to the extent that the Petronas brand, okay, of lubricants is today the recommended brand for Mercedes-Benz through a sponsorship they offer to Formula One. So this is the way you grow your company. So Petronas is a muscle in Southeast Asia, and it has ventured into the neighboring countries, taking controlling shares in other projects in these countries and bringing the returns back to Malaysia. I think we need to think big and we need to think efficiency to be able to reap the benefits of merging some of these entities into large companies.
All right, now before you go, what about your take on bringing together the energy and petroleum sectors? I mean, the ministries of petroleum and energy.
Yes, same argument.
Okay.
At the time when the two entities were separated, we had a huge power crisis on hand. And some felt that by separating them would address the problem. But wait a minute. What was the nature of the problem? In spite of government's persistent denial, the problem was purely a financing problem. Our inability to procure adequate fuel to generate power. How does the separation of the two entities generate the resources you need?
Okay.
So you realize that over the time that we did the separation, nothing really changed. In fact, for most part of the last year, that ministry had remained without a substantive minister. And yet it has functioned. So I make the point that we need to return to the state where we had the two together as energy ministry. Again, let's note that the two are interrelated.
All right.
The petroleum ministry generates the power required, the fuel required to generate power. So keeping the two together makes sense.
All right, thank you very much.
Their work are synergized in a way that actually benefits both sectors.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Steve Mantial, for your time. Dr. Steve Mantial is the co-chairperson of the Ghana Extractive Integrity Initiative. You're still on the marketplace, and shortly we shall be taking you to the Flagstaff House, where we hear the President, Akufo-Addo, is meeting a Chinese delegation at the Flagstaff House. We'll bring you some excerpts on that meeting. But for now, let's go on the ground to the Central Business District of Accra and speak with Charles Aite, who has been talking to some businesses, small-scale businesses, of course, on what they think about the President's promise of reducing taxes and what's the impact that it will have on their businesses. Charles, if you're ready, let's go on and tell us more.
Absolutely, Emmanuel. As you stated in your introductory, statement, various traders across the Central Business District of Accra are expressing high expectations from Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo's administration as he takes office today at the Flagstaff House. But in the wake of the expectations, I also caught up with the president of the Ghana Union Association, Ghana Union Traders Association, in the person of Dr. Ofori Ameyaw I at his office here at the Central Business District of Accra to find out from him the key expectations that Guta is expecting or, looking forward to in Nana Addo's administration. And he is right here with me as we discuss these very expectations. Thank you very much, sir, for honoring this very interview. In our interaction before we came live on air, you have expressed concerns over, issues related to the high taxation, the Eston Mahama administration, the issue of high utility tariffs, the issue of the, mess at the Tema oil in the Tema ports, to be specific, and the invasion of foreigners into, our markets, our local markets today. What happens to be Guta's main expectations from Nana Addo's administration?
Well, thank you very much, and let me say good afternoon to our viewers. And let me say that the media had actually done the yeoman's job in the country for some time now. Had it not been the media, all of us could have been staying in darkness without knowing what is going on around us. So kudos to the media also in the country. And let me also say that, you know, some time ago, just early this February, you saw Guta actually embarking on demonstration about excessive and introduction of new taxes, which we thought was not fair to us, because we keep on saying that government always talks about the private sector as an engine of growth. And as a private sector, if you want your private sector to be an engine of growth, you need to feed the engine with lubricants like oil, brake fluid, and to move the vehicle that you're driving in. Without these lubricants, the vehicle cannot move. And so by translating it into reality, what it means therefore is that if we do not have a conducive business environment, like the macroeconomic indicators I've already mentioned about, you know, interest rate, inflation, exchange rate, not forgetting about the utility tariffs, like electricity and what have you. And so if we have all these things coming together as a challenge, that private person had an arduous task of meeting some of these challenges. It wouldn't have been easy. But if you want the private sector to actually meet the challenges ahead, because whatever we are doing, if we are to complement the effort of every government, then what we do basically is to do business and actually come out to employ the people who are just come out from schools and others. But if we are not being able to employ as a result of these high taxes and interest rate that the banks are charging, let me even say that if you are not lucky, because even the commercial banks are charging 33% to 35%, if you are not lucky and you fall into the hands of the macro financial institutions, you're talking about 5% being a month. Cumulatively, you're talking about 60%. Okay. In the same way, 6%, you're talking about 72%. Right. In the same way, 7%, you're talking about 84%. So how can a businessman work in such environment and break even? It means directly or indirectly, you are being asked to pack bag and baggage and then fold up your business. And that should not be the case for us. Right. As per the ports, you know, we've spoken about
it. It's unfortunate, so I would have to cut you there. But just to end on the issue about the foreign invasion, what expectations are you looking up for from Addo's administration?
Well, thank you very much. In terms of this foreign invasion at the retail sector of the economy, we've
All right, so that was correspondent Charles IT talking to the executive director of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. It's now time to cross over to the seat of government, the Flagstaff House, where President Akufo-Addo is meeting a Chinese delegation at the place.